Well, good evening. We're glad to have everybody with us tonight, and hopefully Candace will be able to join us either by phone or by video very shortly. She's just having some internet connection problems, as I'm sure we've all experienced sometime during this interesting situation. Anyway, we're glad to see people here and glad to have received so much input on this meeting. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Item 1.3 is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval, please. Oh.
Aye.
All in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye and the agenda is approved. Item 1.4 is input from the public. And this is a period devoted to comments from the public. However, with meeting in this way, we have a different thing to read. It says, due to the current state of emergency declared by the governor because of the COVID-19 virus, and more specifically Governor's Directive 006, the Board of Trustees will receive public comments via email only. Those wishing to make public comments should email their public comments to the board's clerk at jcooney@ecsdnv.net. All public comments received before and during the meeting will be forwarded to the Board of Trustees for their consideration. All public comments will be included in the public record as minutes. In order to comply with NRS 241, the open meeting law, and on the advice of legal counsel, the board is precluded from deliberating and/or acting on items raised by public comment which are not already on the agenda. I know we have received a lot of public comment in regard to item 2.1. Mr. Cooney, is there any public comment other than that?
Okay, Madam Chairman, I've received about 205 emails with regards to the policy change. And if going down through that, I'll kind of summarize the topics that were addressed and the main concerns. First of all, student safety and privacy was the number one thing that was stated in the emails that we received. The overwhelming response was against changing the policy. Everyone that submitted were very respectful towards all students, be they transgender or otherwise. Another main concern and a point that was brought out was student safety, especially on trips, out-of-town trips, and sporting events. There were a lot of comments with regards to that and concerns that parents had about their son or daughter being on trips and the housing and sleeping arrangements. In addition, there were a number of the emails that suggested some modification to our buildings. The modifications meaning putting unisex stalls in the existing bathrooms to increase privacy. Also the same with PE facilities, the shower and other facilities there. So people weren't self-conscious about utilizing that. Also, a lot of comments with regards to bullying, reverse discrimination, etc. Those were the the key things. There were approximately 12 to 15 emails that supported the change on the policy. So as we move forward, I'm continuing to receive emails. I want to thank everybody that has submitted emails for their thoughtfulness and their willingness to participate in our meeting. All of these emails have been forwarded to the board, and as you said, Madam Chairman, they will be included in the minutes. Cassie will take care of getting that. So that's the end of my report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cooney. If there are no additional, well, as you said, you're continuing to receive those, but they are all dealing with the same issue. So if there are no additional, if there's no additional public comment regarding any other matter, we'll move on to item 2.1, receipt, review, and possible approval of amendments to board policy JDAD that revise title and delete the paragraphs 7, 9, and 10 for possible action. Mr. Pearson, would you like to take this one, or would you like me to go ahead?
You go right ahead, Chair.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Pearson. I thought I'd give you one last chance to just have your hurrah. I'll go ahead and discuss why this policy came back up at this time. There was a Ninth Circuit ruling on a case earlier in March that changed federal law, basically, and we are under the jurisdiction of the Ninth Circuit. And so due to that change, and also the public accommodations policy, which is the state of Nevada, we are currently in violation of state and federal law with our policy, which requires this change. So that is why that is coming before the board today. And it is possible that the law may change in the future. And if that happens, the board will look at changes to this policy in the future as well. So that's where we are on why the policy is coming up today. I would like to open it up for discussion from the board.
Teresa, may I make the motion? Madam Chairman? Okay.
Sure.
In order to be in compliance with those laws, both federal and state, I move that the board approve of the amendment of board policy JDAD, including the revision of the title and deletion of paragraphs 7, 9, and 10.
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I would like to make some comments. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I had it coming on my phone.
Yeah, we can hear you great, Candace.
Okay. First of all, I want to say that I'm really disappointed that we're having to revisit this policy. A lot of work went into making sure that every student in our school district would have a right to privacy. I really feel like we're being rushed into making a decision on this policy tonight. And I don't feel at this point like we can even make an educated decision truly, because we haven't had time to review the materials and things like that. The fact that there's a Supreme Court ruling that's going to be coming down at the end of July, which also might have a bearing on this. With that being said, I understand why Mr. Zeisler made the motion, but here is my point that I would like to make. I say we either repeal the entire policy and start over with a policy that is a general policy that takes into account the privacy of all students, which would allow all students access to a private bathroom if that's what they choose, no matter who they are, that each student would actually have that privacy access. They would be able, if there are no private areas in the locker room to change, that they would be able to use a private bathroom or find another solution to where they could have privacy to change for gym class. I don't see where the changes that were made to this policy are relevant. We already have an anti-bullying policy in place that covers every single student in our school district. And we also have a dress code that really is pretty general. It can go, can also be used in this instance instead of rewriting a specific policy for bullying. We already have that covered. I also noticed that there were a lot of concerns from people who wrote in, coaches being among the top ones, that they may be set up to be in a position to where they would start getting lawsuits filed against them for being in an area where, as an adult, where young ladies or vice versa, a female coach with young men being in different states of undress, and how that could come back on them as a liability and problem. So I would prefer that we, if the board determines that we really think we need to follow along with repealing, let's repeal the entire thing and start over. That's my personal opinion. That's what it is. Thank you.
I would like to counter Candace's points on a few areas. When this policy came up last year and it was rushed to a vote, I said in the meeting at Wells, we are making a rash decision. This is going to come back to bite us. I said to more than one person, let's be thoughtful about this. Let's take a minute. Let's pump the brakes, because if we pass this policy a year from now, we're going to be in this position. And here we are. And we had a moderately discriminatory policy that was tolerated versus now we passed a more discriminatory policy that now will not stand. It's nice to think that the Supreme Court might rule on this in July. So far, the evidence indicates that the Supreme Court is not going to take these cases on. They have not ruled on any of them that have gone before them yet. And without that ruling, we are bound by the Ninth Circuit Court. So it's our bad that we have been out of compliance for as long as we have. We've been out of compliance for many years. We've known we were out of compliance. We should have been planning on how to address these issues years ago. This bill that offered these protections was passed by Governor Sandoval in 2011. That's 9 years to get a grip on this. And there was pushback, I know, with gender neutral bathrooms in the science building. You know, gender neutral buildings were put in and then they were swapped out for single sex bathrooms and had to be changed back to gender neutral because it was something that the community insisted that they wouldn't need or want. And it's time to move forward, guys. We're behind the curve. Nevada was a leading state for trans rights, and Elko County was behind, and we need to get caught up.
I was also against it when we were at Wells. In fact, I said that it really didn't make any difference what we did because the courts were going to decide for us anyway. But what it comes down to is we made some amendments to a document, and the amendments were about one person or one class of people. And I don't care which court it is. They're going to find out when you're doing something against one person or one class of persons, you're discriminating.
And I'm also wondering, and maybe Todd could speak to this, the issue of all students having access to a single-use bathroom for changing or for bathroom issues. It's my understanding that some of the schools already offer that. Is that district-wide, or am I misinformed?
Tammy, I don't know if it's district-wide, but I know many of our schools give access to a private place. But I have Casey looking into all that as
as we go here. He's analyzing each facility.
Thank you.
Those-
Mrs.
Those
Mrs.
were,
Dastrup,
oh, go ahead.
I had one more comment. I just forgot to mention too that, we have combined schools, and we need to have some protections there for the elementary students, because whatever we come up with, it should also have something in there about anyone like, 7th through 12th graders or anyone who doesn't actually attend that elementary school would have to use a private use bathroom while in that school.
And a policy like that should already be in place regardless of whether or not they have a trans student, in my mind. I don't know why a high school would be allowing elementary kids and high school students to be using the same bathroom. And I understand in some schools, teachers are also using those bathrooms because some of our schools don't have the ability for a teacher to make it to a teacher's lounge. So, that is something worth exploring across the district. But overall, the combined schools, I don't understand why students would be mixing like that, I guess.
I'm going to jump in if that's okay, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to say too first that I commend teachers and administrators for addressing the unique needs of our students and willing to work with them. I've heard from a lot of coaches this past week and some of the things that they've done for their students to make sure that needs were met for those particular students. So thank you for doing that. The two things that I saw continually from some of the emails that we had, there were requests for a private bathroom for all, which Tammy was just asking about, and single occupancy rooms on trips. And I would assume, as you guys had mentioned as well, that the private bathrooms are something that students can avail themselves of if they were to ask the proper personnel. And then I really get nervous about an aspect of single occupancy rooms as far as the costs that would be incurred. It could be done upon request, but parents would have to probably incur the costs that would come with single occupancy rooms with sporting teams. I know we're redacting or removing certain sections, but I also, along the lines of what Candace was saying about the entire policy, I had some questions. Section 3 had some weird verbiage, I should say. There's one clause in there that seemed to be missing. It was an if-then statement, but then didn't have the then part of it. And then I have a question, and Todd, you can probably answer this. On Section 5, who has the ability to access those official records that are in that policy?
I believe they're on Infinite Campus, but we can set up Infinite Campus to have certain users, if you will, or people that view those. So we can do a lot of things that way for protections, for sure.
Right, and that's what I was wondering, because I don't think you want teachers or coaches having to police a situation like that as far as those official records are concerned. And just my bottom line I was going to say is that I think we need to approve the motion just because we need to be compliant with the law.
And Brian, other than directory information, any student records have to, there has to be a release by a parent for access to any of those records other than directory type information that's classified under.
And I would assume, Mike, then it's not only FERPA, but there might be some HIPAA issues as well.
There could
with
be.
The unique nature of the student.
There could be.
Okay.
I understand where Candace is coming from also, but we can't, at least as far as I'm concerned, we can't do without some kind of a policy for the duration of the year at least. But just because we remove the ones that are struck out there doesn't mean that we can't add stuff in there. But I think we have to be very careful and run it by our lawyers before we pass it to find out if it's going to pass muster. And so I think we should do this vote and get it over with.
Right. Thank you, Keith. Any other thoughts from the board?
Madam Chairman.
Yes.
I also, looking at, I'm a little unsure about the NIAA section that we're deleting. Is there a specific reason that the NIAA information is deleted out of there? Were they not compliant, as has been mentioned here before? Question about that. Do you have any information about that, or?
Yeah, I can answer to that. It's, you know, we put in there, or it's says that we would follow the NIAA guidance. So we felt like, because they may update it on a case, you know, whenever they need to, that we would just state it like that and not have anything specific about NIAA.
And Jim,
Okay.
I could add to that I don't know, during one of the very initial revisions or drafts of this policy, we had questions that, you know, pertain to how this policy works in conjunction with athletic travel, athletic access to locker rooms, et cetera. And during that initial draft, we brought in the language from the NIAA word for word and put it in there because at that point in time, that was the only guidance we had in that regard to how this is going to work around athletics. And so that's why it was in there to begin with.
Okay, thank you. You know, in response to the idea of having legal counsel go through and look at the policy, we did that before. That's what we did a year ago. And so I'm not sure that they may even have the right idea on how to address this particular problem. I too agree with the comment that Candace had with regards to just totally repealing this particular policy. However, I think we may be backed into a corner right now, and that may not be an option that we have. I definitely like that idea a whole lot better than going through and amending the policy that we have before us here tonight. So this is a difficult situation, highly volatile conversation piece. So.
And I just want to remind everybody that, yes, that policy was vetted by our legal counsel, but they gave us the policy we wanted, not necessarily the policy that was compliant with state or federal guidelines or laws.
Any other comments from the board? I will just go ahead and say I appreciate the comments from the board, and I share many of your feelings. This is a difficult situation, but we do value the safety, and you know we value every one of our students. They are all important. They all have needs, and we really value the fact that each of our students is important to our district. That being said, I really appreciate all of the comments that people sent in via email. this is a difficult way to meet when I know it would be nice to be face to face and be able to have people step up to the microphone and share their thoughts. But I spent several hours reading every email that came through, and there were a lot of suggestions for things we can do in the district, as far as maybe updating some facilities, or making some other changes so we can better accommodate every student in the district for their safety, their privacy, and to help them have the best educational experience possible. So that being said, in the future, the board may consider revision to this policy, or we may look at this with our legal team and say maybe the best thing to do is to in the future to repeal the entire policy and look at a different way to deal with these situations. But right now, I feel like in order to be compliant with federal and state law, I feel like this is probably the right thing to do for the board right now. So I'd ask for any other thoughts before we move to a vote.
I was just going to emphasize what you said too, Teresa, that this should be a dynamic document, especially in light of the fact that there could be a ruling with the Supreme Court that we would address this document again when something like that occurred.
Absolutely. All right. I don't want anyone to feel like they did not get to share their thoughts. And again, I just want to thank everyone from the public who sent us emails, and know that every board member received those. And I appreciate the kindness that I saw in many of them regarding every student in our district and respecting their choices and decisions, but also being very mindful of your own students. We appreciate parental involvement, and really want you to be involved in your students' education as much as you can, and we sure appreciate that. So if there's nothing else from the board, we have a motion on the floor, and I will ask for all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
All right.
Nay.
The chair votes. Thank you. The chair votes aye, and motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for your thoughtful input, and thank you for the time you have spent serving the students in our district. We appreciate that. And again, this is a policy that is going to be something we will revisit as laws change. But in the meantime, it's just important to note we care for every student in our district. We'll move on to item 2.2, receipt, review, and possible acceptance of the renewal proposal from the Nevada Public Agency Insurance Pool and approval of payment for fiscal year 2021 from the general fund.
All righty, we have Dane and Mike from Pool and LP Insurance here to give you guys a little presentation regarding our renewal of our pool insurance. So Mike, are you out there? I thought I saw you.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Great. Yeah, I can start off. I know Dane's on the line too, but I think Dane might want to start the presentation off.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I'm sure everybody has this in their board packets. The pool proposal for this year is factoring in a 16.49% increase, which nobody wants to pay that. However, the pool, and Mike can elaborate on this, some of the other renewals outside of pools that they've seen have been significantly higher. So the pool tries to keep costs down as best they can. And that increase can be attributed to several things. The total insured values of Elko County School District's buildings went up 12% versus the last renewal. Autos and employee counts are also up. But I feel one of the larger contributors is the state of the insurance market in general. We're currently in a hard market, and that's due to the insurance carriers having property losses over 100%. So the last 3 years it's been climbing up. There for a while it was what we call a soft market, and the premiums reflected that. But with the hard market, it goes up. They're trying to maintain profitability essentially. We don't know what that'll look like in the future, but you can kind of watch the hurricane, fire seasons, and then we'll have a better idea after that. Another thing to discuss is the pool offers additional benefits besides just being an insurance company, in the manner of educational and risk management grants, which the school district's done a pretty good job of utilizing, but we need to not forget those are out there and wring the maximum value out of your insurance sponge, so to speak. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mike unless anybody has any questions for me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to point out on the educational grants, during the course of the year, school district took advantage of 2 for a total of $4,000 on a grant. Risk management grants totaled a value of $29,000 that the school district received, and the equivalent rating for the HR training that we're providing is a value of about $26,000. And the school safety operations through the development and advancement of HVAs, the hazardous vulnerability assessments, has a value of $24,000. So those values can be added, and we encourage the usage of our other risk management products that we have for the rest of the agencies as well. And the one that I really kind of like to point out on behalf of all the school districts is we've really advanced our e-learning product through the platform of Absorb. 2 of the major school districts in the state have been utilizing it extensively. And we have over 8,000 employees throughout the state that are using the system. So it's really advanced as far as the ease of use, and our product of the e-learning curriculum that's available to all members. And I know this is brief, and it's always kind of hard to do this over the Zoom, but we also changed and separated the cyber coverage from the main form. So you have an enhanced cyber coverage that's going to start July 1st. You still have a limits of liability is a $3 million coverage on the cyber risk security coverage. You have $100,000 for security failure privacy event management coverage, a sublimit of $250,000 for network interruption coverage, and sublimits of $50,000 for proof of loss of preparation costs. But the main coverage, of course, is that $3 million coverage for cyber risk security. I would want to remind everybody on the call, if you have any incidents, or even if it's an incident that you think won't develop into anything, please notify us immediately of any kind of cyber intrusion or any threat of ransomware. The earlier our team can help you, the more mitigation we can help lessen the pain. We've had several entities been hit with ransomware, and again, the earlier that we're involved and our team can get involved, the more mitigation, and we can help you with that particular incident. So I did want to point that out. I do want to point out, and it was been a very nice side benefit from us supporting the HBAs and school districts participating in getting their hazardous vulnerability assessments done, is they were able to apply for grants, that, federal safety grants. And throughout all the school districts in the state of Nevada, I believe it was, they were able to receive a total of $6 million, and I believe Elko took advantage of that. So thank you, and I appreciate everything that you're trying to do to keep our students safe. And we will continue that mission in a very direct way. So any input from any of the board members, superintendents, and all of the administrators, we will not only listen, but try whatever we can to continue to make, keep our schools safe. Dane did mention about the increase, and of course, a lot of your price increase is going to be related to the insured values and the things that Dane mentioned. But I do want to point out that since it is a very hard market, and with our long-term relationship with Lloyd's of London, we were able to get a very reasonable rate increase deal that we were able to strike with Lloyd's of London. That was around 13%, and we felt very good about that, even though it was an increase, because most of the clients with Lloyd's of London through their property coverage were receiving 30 to 100% increase, and some were being denied coverage. So with our long-term success and our long-term relationship with Lloyd's of London, we're actually able to negotiate a 13% increase with them. And that, of course, I'm mentioning that because that is one of the major parts of our insurance coverage, of course, is for the property coverage for all of your facilities. So with that being said, we are actually starting in the process of renewals for the next fiscal year, which would be 21-22. And we'll do everything we can to keep those flat or, and if possible, reduction. But it's a very difficult market that we're dealing with, but we're constantly working on your behalf on getting you the best deal and the best coverage possible. So I'd welcome any questions or anything, any other questions you may have. Thank you.
Mike, this is Brian Zeisler.
Hi, Brian.
Is there a chance next year that the increase that we're seeing this year might go down due to the fact that the last 3 months there's really not been anything happening on our campuses?
That'd be a great outcome. Yeah, you never know. Yes, it has that possibility. So if we can get through, the next 7-8 months without any major spikes or anything that really throws the underwriting off in the wrong direction, yes, that's a possibility.
And as I understood Dane, when he was presenting, this is a nationwide figure that we're looking at. And the reason we're seeing the 16% increase is due to those nationwide factors then.
Yes, the nationwide and actually worldwide factors are contributing to this hard market. So yes, those rate increases, that's the main driving force behind that. And if some of the loss ratios that we've had just in the past year or two have been contributing to that as well. But no, the market is contributing to this increase, which is the main driving force.
Any other questions from the board? I'll just thank Mike and Dane for being here and for sharing the information with us. How would the board like to proceed?
I move to approve the annual renewal for property/liability insurance through the Nevada Public Agency Insurance Pool and approval for payment from fiscal year 2020 to 2021 funds.
Second.
Motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Oh,
Aye.
I apologize. No, is there any other discussion? Sorry, is there any other discussion? All right, seeing no discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and that's approved. Thank you again, Mike and Dane, for being with us.
Thank you.
Move on to item 2. Item
Teresa,
2.
before you move on to that item, actually, Teresa,
Go ahead.
could I just go back to, I just wanted to ask one question about 2.1 that I forgot to ask. I know this is a convoluted situation for everyone, especially the Title IX aspects, and I was wondering if either Todd or Mike could address this. Will there be teacher or coach training on this in the fall, or something that, you know, staff can avail themselves of to be a little more educated on the law?
I would say
Okay.
yes, but this is Todd. I would say yes, but I won't be here, of course. But I will for sure communicate with Dr. Robinson.
And I would say, given the nature of the substantial change in the policy, that it has to be a given that something beyond just a dissemination of the new policy needs to happen, so that people are afforded an opportunity to ask questions for clarification and receive additional guidance in regards to the unfolding of the policy.
And I would assume some of that will appear in the coach's handbook that's being worked on.
Yes, I'm sure there's things already in there that will have to be amended as a result of the change in the policy.
Okay.
All right, Brian, thank you for that clarification, and I'm sure there will be a lot more discussion on that topic. We'll move on to item 2.3, receipt, review, and possible acceptance of the bid for the fiscal year 21 asphalt maintenance, crack seal coating, and striping of parking lots, roadways, etc. Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Kelly is available for any questions.
Yeah, this is something we do every year. It helps maintain our asphalt and keeps us from having to replace it. So it's much cheaper alternative.
I had a comment, Mr. Kelly. I wanted to say that here we are once again over budget. And you know, I understand that it's hard to predict how much these projects are going to cost, especially when you bid them out or, you know, plan them out so far in advance. However, this is, you know, every single one has come in over budget now. And this one is considerably over budget. And so my question to you would be, can we just take however many projects off this list that we need to get back in within what we budgeted? Because at some point we're going to have, you know, the rubber has to meet the road on this budget. And I'm getting very concerned that, you know, other projects that are going to come down the road aren't going to be done because we've spent more than what we budgeted.
To answer that, Candace or Miss Wines, is one of the reasons why this one's high is because the new elementary school in West Wendover was included in this. But I will say last year we spent $200,000. So when you see the new capital improvement plan, it will probably be budgeting $300,000 a year in the next capital improvement plan.
Okay, but then for this year, can we?
Go ahead,
Candace. Sorry. So for this year, can we bring this one down to where we budgeted it and then plan that out, you know, over the next year or two to make up for the ones that don't get done this year?
We can, but we're going to run into the same situation because in 3 years we'll have Liberty Peak come into the equation, and I'm just going to have to actually our asphalt needs have increased, our square footage has increased, so we'll have to, you know, we're going to have to budget more each year, but we can if you'd like.
Casey, when was that money set aside in the 5-year capital improvement plan?
We just budget $250,000 a year for
So
each year.
those decisions were made years back then, I suppose at the
Yes.
start of the 5-year plan.
Yeah, in fact, we actually increased it from 225 to 250 2 years ago.
So I was just going to ask where this one is over budget. Are we able to, Candace is asking about, can we take one parking lot out of there, however many we need to do this, or is that just going to slow down another project that we've already got on the list?
It won't slow down a project, but it could impact the ability, the life of the whatever school we take away from. Most of our asphalt's in pretty rough shape. So if we do not seal it and treat it, it could get to a point where it's beyond repair. Then it'll cost us a lot more to actually reconstruct the parking lots.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
when it comes to asphalt maintenance, you're either paying it now or you're paying it later. And as we've seen, even though the price of oil went down, I don't know that we're going to see any kind of reduction in the costs for maintenance of these projects. And if we have a bad winter and we miss one or two of these parking lots, it's going to cost us a whole lot more than what we're planning to do with this bid right now. So.
With the increase in schools like Casey was talking about, do we, and this isn't going to take place right now, but do we need to look at in the future raising that 250 again? And so that it more adequately represents what we need?
In this year's capital improvement plan, I'm looking to increase that to 300,000.
Any other questions for Casey? How would the board like to proceed?
I move that we do the asphalting projects that are in the ones that were presented to us.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
Thank you. The chair votes aye, and that is approved. And Casey, we appreciate you letting us know what's going on there, and good to know that we need to bring that number up in the future so that we can maintain our parking lots and our asphalt. Item 2.4 is receipt, review, and possible acceptance of the bid for LP gas.
Again, this is an annual contract that we have to renew every year. It provides propane for all the campuses that do not have natural gas provided to them.
Any questions from the board?
Not a question, just a comment. I'm glad to see that we're getting more than one bid now.
Any
I
other
move
questions?
to award the fiscal year 21 LP gas bid to Feral Gas LP.
I second.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and that bid is awarded. Item 2.5 is receipt, review, and approval of request to conduct a surplus sale.
Hey, this is our request to sell some stuff. So we have to come to you, board members, to do that. And we're asking for approval to have a surplus sale to get rid of some of our items.
I move to approve the request to conduct a surplus sale.
I
Second.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Pearson, could you just elaborate a little bit? What kind of stuff? Is it office supplies or, what kind of stuff goes into a surplus sale?
It depends on, what's down in our warehouse that is unused, that gets sent from schools, that's older items. It just depends. I don't know if Jerry knows what the list is as of yet, but we usually come out with a long list, and when we have those items and they start to stock up or pile up, we tend to, or we have in the past had a surplus sale. So it could be desks, it could be anything.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
I
thank you.
was told there are a bunch of old desks out there, but Josh has not started gathering up the things for this year. If any of you have been down to one of those sales before, some people think they're the best bargains in the world, and others look at it and it's just junk. So it all depends on what you want.
All right, any other questions from the board? I guess maybe one question is how do you post the things that are for sale for anyone who's interested?
We put out a notice, and then they compile the list of all the items that are available for sale. And sometimes, like a few years ago, Elko High School got rid of some photography equipment. And so they'll do a pallet, so it might be a pallet of something or a stack of 10 chairs or whatever it might be. And then they have everybody submits a sealed bid, and we have an official bid opening, and it goes to whoever's the highest bidder.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Any other questions or discussion from the board? All in favor of the approval for the surplus sale, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and that is approved. Item 3.1 is our consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and our consent agenda is approved. Item 4.1 is a report from our NASB director.
There's hasn't been a lot going on. I forwarded you guys an email that I got from Deb Oliver about the COVID-19. We're going to host the June NASB meeting, and I was going to host it at the 71 Ranch, but it's been completely canceled, not just a virtual meeting, so we're not even going to have it. And that's about all I have to report.
All right, thank you. Any questions or guidance for Ira?
I'm just bummed not to be heading out to the 71 Ranch.
All right, item 4.2 is items from board members.
Madam Chairman,
Go ahead, Jim.
Mr. Cooney.
I wanted to recognize Todd and publicly thank him for the service that he's done for our school district and congratulate him on his retirement. I am disappointed that he's not continuing. However, I can understand that he's got several things probably on his plate to be involved with and a little bit of relaxing time. So thank you very much for your years of service for our school district, and congratulations. And I'll tell you, there is life after retirement. So good luck to you and your family, and be safe. Thanks again.
Appreciate it, Mr. Cooney.
I have another comment, but I'll start off with Todd. You'll find out there's more projects after you retire than there is now. But anyway, what my real comment was about is I did the Carlin graduation this year, And they did a fantastic job with the limitations they had with the COVID-19. Each student was only allowed to bring parents, but they were set down, the chairs were set down on the field. Each of the students came up and they took their own diploma, so we weren't handing them or shaking hands. That was the only two things that I could see that was different than a regular graduation. Well, three things. One, there would have been more people. Two, I would have handed them the graduation and shook their hands. But they did a very good job with the limitations that they had.
I also wanted to
I had
chime
a
in
couple
about,
of things I wanted to.
go ahead, Candace.
Okay, I had a question and then some comments, but first I also wanted to say congratulations, Todd. Thank you for your service to the school district for all these years. Just echoing what Mr. Cooney said. And then I had a question about probably to Mike. What happened to that coach handbook revision that was started some time ago? And we did get to see, a draft. Is that still in the works, or can you give me like a status update on that?
Yeah, it is. And it should be set, Candace, to go into place for fall sports.
Okay.
As Brian
Thank
brought
you.
up, we'll probably have to make some additional revisions based on the change in the policy tonight. But anyway,
Okay.
it should be ready to go by the fall. And if you guys would like to conduct a final review of that, we'd be happy to post it on a board agenda in July or August for you to do that before we disseminate it to principals at schools.
I would like to see it. I don't know if the other board members concur, but I would certainly like to see it. Thank you. And then I also wanted to talk about graduation. And as most of you probably know, I got to travel to Jackpot and Wells, and I have to commend the schools and the kids. They did an amazing job under the circumstances, and they had fun. The kids all took it in stride. They were just great. All the kids were just, so good with it. And I even had many people at Wells tell me that they would prefer to do it that way every year because everyone had so much fun, other than more people couldn't come. Because again, they also restricted, how many people could come and watch, just the family members, but they commented, I'd do this again in a minute, and then but have everybody come and watch. So it was a lot of fun. And like I said, I just want to commend them for doing such a great job.
Yes, I was also going to commend Elko High for the wonderful graduation ceremony they put on with all the weather events that were happening. The diplomas got blown away. So they adapted, but it was nice to see Mr. Wickersham on the scooter leading the parade down 5th Street and ending up at the field. And every family that I talked to that was leaving the track was saying that same thing that Candace was saying, that we should do this every year. They really enjoyed it and really appreciated the community turnout and their support along the parade route. So good job, Elko High. And then congratulations, Todd. I was just going to point out as well that we do assignments here at GBC with our future teachers, looking at their favorite teachers in the past, and your name comes up a lot as a favorite and what you did for those students in the classroom. So congratulations on your retirement, and you will be missed.
Thank you, Mr. Zeisler.
I'd like to congratulate Todd. There's been some big issues come along, and you've stepped in front of them and done an outstanding job as a superintendent, and just congratulate you on your
You muted yourself,
Ira,
Ira.
you
We
want
can't.
to?
Yeah,
Whoops, sorry about that. I was commenting about Hawaii's graduation. It was really good. Mr. Streeter they were kind of at odds with the tribe over some of the things, but they got it worked out, and it was a really good graduation. And other than wearing masks, I don't think you'd have known there was anything going on. But, nope, it was good. Congratulations, Todd.
I'd like to congratulate Todd as well, begrudgingly, of course, because I'm losing my seat buddy. But we're sure going to miss you. You sure are loved in this district, and best wishes for the future.
All right, thank you, everyone. And I've got three things, so I'll go in order. First of all, graduation. I've heard so many positive things from all the communities. I was able to attend Spring Creek's graduation, and we did not get blown off the stage, neither did the diplomas. We did blow over one vase of flowers, but aside from that, it was fun to see the kids come around in their cars, and everybody just really had an enjoyable time. The parade turned out great. The community was so supportive, and just a really positive experience. And it was fun to, after all the stress that a lot of communities had over the graduations, it was awesome to see the kids just really enjoy that celebration of completing high school. The second thing is I would just like to suggest to the board to think about when Dr. Robinson arrives, that we perhaps do something, training with her, perhaps something like Silver State Governance, which is offered through NASB and Deb Oliver, to help kind of get our board and our new superintendent moving in the same direction and get a common vision, and make that happen. So just a thought for the board to be considering if we want to do that, or how we want to work on that with Dr. Robinson. And my third item is just, again, Mr. Pearson, thank you. Thank you for all of your years of dedication to the Elko County School District. You started in the best place in Ruby Valley, of course, but we're glad you ended up as our superintendent. I would echo what Ira said, that there's been a lot of pretty tough issues that have come up while you have been at the helm, and you have handled them well. And we just really appreciate you and wish you the best of luck in retirement, and glad to know you're retiring, but you're not going anywhere. We will still see you around the district, and we will still call on you from time to time to come back and lend your expertise and your great personality with students. And I know when Mr. Zeisler says, a lot of students, I'm getting a little teary because I can see you're getting a little teary when I feel, a lot of students say you were one of their favorite teachers. I know my kids had you as a principal, and they still talk about what a great principal you were, and that you cared for every kid. You knew every kid when they walked through the door, and that makes a difference to them even now as they've moved on up into high school, and my other kids still hear about Mr. P. So just thank you again for all of your years of service.
Well, thank you for the kind words, and I'm not getting teary-eyed. I'm pretty excited and pretty happy. Being with the kids is the best part of this job, and I have so many fond memories of students. I've forgotten many of them, but I appreciate all the kind words, and I do appreciate the career my wife Nancy and I have had in this county. So thank you so much.
All right, any other items from board members? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to Mr. Pearson's last superintendent's report.
Okay, we have a construction update, your school board meeting schedule for next year, reopening committee update from Mr. McEnany, and a vacancy summary from Mr. Smith. Of course, Casey is always available with questions about construction. So take it away.
All right, well, I'll start. I just had a question for Casey. I know you're kind of assessing our facilities and looking at bathrooms and locker rooms, and just wondering if you can give us a little bit of an update on that.
Well, each campus is going to be a completely different animal, I guess, because it depends on the way the layouts are, the locker rooms, the restrooms. So it could be, some of them could be very simple, some could be very expensive.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
I just had a question. Are we ever going to be able to go back to the boardroom? That's my question.
Yeah, I talked about it earlier on, Candace. I don't think you were on there. But I have a directive from the governor today that we are looking over, and we'll have a plan in place so that we can get back in that boardroom, probably the last board meeting in June.
Awesome. Thank you.
I have a question.
How is the HVAC system coming in Wells?
They're in construction as we speak, Ira.
Is it it's on schedule?
Yeah, it is on schedule. It's actually ahead of schedule because of the COVID-19, the kids leaving earlier. We're able to start that project earlier.
Well, good. Okay.
I just have a quick question to Chris. Were you ever able to hold the meeting this afternoon? I could never get it.
Yeah, we held the mental health subcommittee meeting as the reopening committee today. Yes, Mr. Fish, we did get it going. The participants, again, were looking at certain issues as related to mental health concerns with reopening schools, and it was pretty productive. It was a pretty productive meeting today. Our next big meeting will be tomorrow with the full committee.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. McEnany, can you give us any kind of update on what's any new guidance you've received or anything like that to guide those discussions, or are you just still kind of planning what ifs?
So the guidance that Mr. Pearson referenced today actually is a step in the right direction. It gives us direction on the timeline for reopening schools. Many of the things that we're looking at in the reopening committee, though, are still being driven by other factors, particularly the logistical openings of the schools. How are buses going to work? How are sanitizing stations going to be put into schools? Costs associated with that. And then, of course, on the academic side of it, one of the big things that we're looking at is not only, I mean, if we are able to open schools with no restrictions in the fall, then the academic side of this will be moot because we'll just get open schools. But in addition to looking at perhaps opening up under either a blended learning model or a distance learning model, we're also looking at contingencies if we have either a wide scale or even targeted school closures for next year. By that, what I mean is if we are allowed to open schools normally, yet we have a breakout of COVID, say in the West Wendover area. I doubt that under the new guidance, one of the things we're looking at is we seriously doubt that would cause a closure of the entire district. So what do we do for what we're referencing as spot closures? What happens if we just have to close an elementary school in Jackpot or things of that nature? How do we accommodate students? What do we need to provide? So it's moved along very, very well. The subcommittee chairs have all had their first meetings. I believe at the time of posting of this meeting, I think I could only provide one summary of those meetings, and that's in Mr. Pearson's attachment for this. But by this time, I have all of those subcommittee notes, and we're going to review them tomorrow and keep moving forward. The big thing that we're going to do tomorrow too is we're looking at the creation of the survey, a parent, a student, and a staff survey about needs and concerns about opening schools up. That's going to be our main focus moving forward.
Chris, do we have a timeline then to put out some plans, like a plan A, B, C, some contingencies so that parents can prepare come August?
We do, and so our plan was to have something in place, those multiple contingencies in place by the time that administrators return back. One of the reasons we want that, the surveys will go out well before that. And of course, the information that we get from the parent, staff, and student surveys will help us inform the contingency plans on what we need to do and what parents hope for and what staff members hope for those openings. The other thing that will do will give us time for the powers that be to determine what they expect as far as logistical and academic openings of schools will look like in the fall. One of the main issues of that, again, and I think I've mentioned this before, is current guidance for buses. Most of our student transportation buses, not trip buses, but buses that we use for the transportation of students before and after school, most of those are what we call our 84 buses, which means we can put 84 kids on those buses. Now that number comes from 84 elementary kids, 3 per a seat. Obviously, that's not 84 high school kids. We can't fit 84 high school kids on a bus, 3 to a seat. Current CDC guidelines, if we follow those, we'd only be able to put 14 kids on one of those buses. That's current guidelines. Obviously, we cannot adequately function our transportation department under those current guidelines. So for things like that right now, we have no contingency plan because another 50 buses are not going to fall from the sky, much less our 50 bus driver is going to fall from the sky. So some of these things we want to hold off a little bit and get more guidance and see the shifting tides of what the CDC and the governor is putting out so we can actually have a better understanding of exactly what we need to do. So really, as far as timelines, we're probably looking at mid-July. The surveys will be out well before that. And mid-July, we'll be able to meet with administrators when they return from their summer breaks and really put those plans in place and move forward. So
We have some model
starts.
Chris, do we have some model districts that we're looking at that maybe on year-round schools or school schedules that have had to do the busing or transportation aspect?
No, because all schools were shut down. At this point, nothing has reopened that we can look at to model what we're going to cross. An example of year-round schools, of course, Clark County has year-round schools, and they were following the same guidelines we do. So they're crossing the same bridges right now. Some of my peers down in Clark County and in Washoe that I've been talking to, they're basically modeling similar to what we're doing. That's their big plan right now, and they don't plan on starting their year-round schools till the fall to start a fresh cycle, if that makes sense. Kind of how that's going to go. They're actually planning on year-round schools having summer break.
I'm just wondering if we're going to be thrown a curveball, like we start early or anything like that.
No, we don't anticipate an early start coming out from the Department of Ed at this point, particularly since our schedules have all been approved. So.
All right, thank you, Mr. McInerney. Any other questions from the board? All right, Mr. Pearson, any final words?
Yeah, it's been real. It's been a heck of a ride.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 6.1, approval of accounts payable.
I move to approve the accounts payable.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Abstentions, disclosures. I will disclose that I have a family member whose employer is listed on the accounts payable, so I will be abstaining. All in favor of approving the accounts payable, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye and the account payable are approved. Item 7.1 is a final opportunity for public comment. Mr. Cooney, have you had more comments come in to discuss?
I have had 4 additional comments that will be forwarded to the board members and to Cassie. So,
All right, thank you. I look forward to being able to see people in the boardroom and hear their public comments in person instead of just reading them in an email. But I am glad that we are able to receive all of those comments and the board is able to look all of those over. Before adjourning, again, I just want to thank all the people that shared their thoughts on our agenda today. It's a challenging topic for many people and a challenging topic for many of the board members. But we appreciate the input from our community. We appreciate your compassion for all of our students. And we just hope to move forward in a positive way where we can all help our kids to have the best educational experience possible. Item 8.1 is adjournment of the meeting.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you. Any discussion on the adjournment? Again, Mr. Pearson, thank you, and we'll miss having you at our meetings and having you at the helm. Thank you again. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 All right. Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and we are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for your attendance.
Have a good night.
Good night. Be safe.
Good night.